Ladies and gentlemen, there is a path that is rarely spoken of, a technique long hidden from ordinary eyes. It is not popular, not because it lacks power, but because it requires courage, stillness, and presence. Not everyone is ready for that. It is not a path you find in books or under bright lights. It's passed through silence, through breath, through discipline and intention. This is the forbidden technique to activate your inner vision and to see beyond the invisible. From the moment we are born, our senses are turned outward. We see, we touch, we hear the world outside of us. This is how we learn to survive, but not how we learn to see. Real vision begins not with the eyes, but with the silence behind the eyes. The moment you stop identifying with what you see and begin to question the seer, that is when the gate to the invisible starts to open. The forbidden technique is hidden in plain sight, but ignored due to modern distractions. This is the greatest irony of our time. We are surrounded by knowledge and yet wisdom remains rare. We have access to infinite information, and yet we are more disconnected from ourselves than ever before. The technique that leads to inner vision, to seeing what is beyond the surface of the visible world, has not disappeared. It has simply been drowned in noise, buried beneath the chaos of the modern mind. Everywhere you look, you are encouraged to look outward. Your phone, your screen, your notifications, your schedule, your responsibilities. All of them keep your attention locked on the external world. We are conditioned to react to stimulation, constantly swiping, clicking, chasing one distraction after another. We become restless, uncomfortable with silence, uneasy with stillness. The very things required to discover the path within are seen as boring or even threatening to the restless mind. The ancient masters understood something that we have forgotten. They knew that the key to true vision, to inner power, to peace, was not in the accumulation of more things or more knowledge, but in the ability to go inward. They practiced solitude, not as escape but sacred training. They sat in silence, not to waste time, but to stretch it, to deepen it, to understand its true nature. They understood that the technique to see beyond the invisible is simple, but it is not easy. And because it is not easy, most people ignore it. This technique is not hidden behind walls or guarded by secret organizations. It is not encrypted in ancient scrolls. It is hidden because no one is looking in the right place. People search outside for what only exists inside. They seek shortcuts to insight and quick fixes to inner pain, but this technique does not bend to impatience, be packaged into an app or downloaded in seconds. It demands presence. It demands attention. It demands a kind of devotion that the modern mind finds uncomfortable. The truth is that this technique is not forbidden by others. It is forbidden by our own habits, our own fears, and our own refusal to slow down in order to see what is really there. We are afraid to face ourselves, to sit with the silence of our own minds, to look into the mirror that does not flatter us, but reveals us for who we really are. And so we distract ourselves constantly. We chase temporary pleasures and shallow entertainment, avoid the deep and often painful journey within. But make no mistake, the technique still exists. It has been practiced in temples and caves by monks and mystics, by warriors and sages, and it can still be practiced now by anyone who is willing to step away from the noise and into the stillness. Begins with a single decision to reclaim your attention, to stop letting your energy be drained by constant reaction, and to start building the power of intention. It begins when you realize that the outward journey is endless, but the inward journey is infinite. You do not need special tools, teachings, to begin, only the willingness to stop and breathe, to close your eyes and listen to the silence beneath your thoughts, to stop identifying with every emotion and story that passes through your mind, and to begin watching them like clouds floating across a vast sky. The more you practice, more your awareness sharpens, and the more you begin to see things, not as they appear but as they truly are. This is the vision that does not rely on eyes. It is the vision of the spirit, the vision of the inner being, and once activated, It changes everything. You begin to see meaning where others coincidence. You feel energy where others feel emptiness. You know things not because you read them, but because you have experienced them directly. This is the sacred power of inner vision, and it has been waiting inside you all along. So understand this: the forbidden technique is not truly forbidden. It is simply ignored, rejected, and forgotten by a world too busy to sit still for 5 minutes. But for the one who dares to be still, who dares to listen, who dares to observe with pure awareness, the door will open, and when it does, nothing will ever look the same again. Turning inward, not outward. This is a truth that has been repeated by sages, monks, and spiritual masters across thousands of years. Yet in today's world, it is more misunderstood than ever before. People believe that what they see with their eyes is the full extent of reality. They rely on the senses, as if they are the ultimate source of knowledge. But real vision is not about looking at the world, it is about seeing through it, and to see through it, you must begin by seeing yourself. From the moment we wake up, we are taught to direct our attention outward. We open our eyes, check our phones, we listen to the news, we scroll through social media, we are fed images, sounds, and opinions. And these become the lenses through which we view life. We start measuring our worth by what we see around us, how we compare to others, what others expect from us, what we have, and what we do. Not all of this creates an illusion, and the longer we look outward, the stronger this illusion becomes. Turning inward is not about escaping the world, it is about understanding it from a deeper place. You begin by recognizing that what you see outside is only a reflection of your inner state. If mind is restless, you will see a chaotic world. If your heart is closed, you will feel isolated, even in a crowd. But if your awareness is calm and clear, you will start to perceive the truth behind appearances. You will not be fooled by surface. You will see depth, even in the ordinary. This inner seeing cannot be activated by force. It comes through stillness. When you sit quietly with yourself, you begin to notice the patterns of your thoughts, the pull of your emotions, and the movements of your energy. You begin to see the parts of you that you have ignored, buried, or misunderstood. You witness your own fears, your own stories, and your own light. And in this observation, something magical happens. The noise begins to fade, and what remains is clarity, a kind of vision that is not tied to the eyes, but to your presence. Real vision is not limited by distance or direction. It is not dependent on lighting or perspective. It comes from a place that is beyond time and beyond form. It allows you to see truth without needing proof. It lets you recognize authenticity in others without explanation. It helps you detect dishonesty, even when it is hidden behind smiles and kind words. This is the kind of vision that makes a person wise, not because they know everything, but because they see what matters. To turn inward requires courage. You must face your own reflection, without judgment and without escape. You must be willing to explore the parts of your mind that are uncomfortable. You must be willing to question your beliefs and peel away the layers of identity that have been built by society. Only then can you begin to know yourself. And only when you know yourself can you truly see others. This journey is not always peaceful at first, because when you turn inward, you will face your pain, insecurities, your attachments, and your regrets. But if you stay with it, if you breathe through it, and do not run from what you find, you will also uncover your strength, your compassion, your creativity, and your inner peace. You will discover that the real you is not the voice in your head or the image in the mirror, but the silent witness behind it all. Real vision also brings responsibility. Once you begin to see clearly, you can no longer pretend to be blind. You can no longer participate in illusions or betray your own truth. You will feel called to live with greater integrity, with more awareness, and with deeper purpose. You will no longer waste time on what is false or shallow, because you will recognize the sacredness of time, of life, and of every moment. Inward vision leads to freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be who you truly are. It breaks the chains of external approval and internal confusion, and replaces them with a quiet confidence, a grounded knowing, a connection to something much greater than yourself. This is the reward for those who dare to see beyond what is visible, for those who choose to turn inward, even when the world keeps shouting, "Look outside." So begin now, close your eyes, not to sleep, but to awaken. Sit with yourself in silence, not to avoid the world, but to understand it. Return your attention to your breath, to your body, to your awareness, and begin the journey of seeing clearly from within, because once you see from the inside, the outside will never control you again. The breath, awareness, and mental stillness open the door to inner vision. This is a timeless truth, one that has been whispered through generations of spiritual teachings and silent wisdom. The breath is not just a function of the body, it is a bridge between mind and the soul. It is the thread that connects the physical world to the inner universe. Yet so many people overlook this power. They breathe without attention, they live without awareness, and as a result, they remain asleep to the deeper truths hidden beneath the noise of the world. In the modern age, people search for complex answers. They chase after knowledge and external guidance, hoping to find meaning. Yet the most powerful gateway to vision lies in the most simple act, breathing, but not the unconscious shallow breath of survival. It is the conscious breath that becomes a portal to present, to stillness, and to awakening. When you begin to bring awareness to your breath, you start to reclaim control over your mind, and that is where the shift begins. The mind and breath are deeply connected. When one is calm, the other follows. And when both are still, a new kind of seeing arises. Stillness, the mind is not achieved by force. It is cultivated through gentle discipline. It begins by sitting in silence with nothing to do, and nowhere to go, just you and your breath. Your attention begins to soften and sharpen at the same time. You begin to hear things you never heard before, like the rhythm, your own heartbeat, or the subtle flow of your thoughts. Without reacting to them, you become the observer, and that is the key. The observer is the gateway to vision. As long as you are lost in your thoughts, reacting, chasing, judging, you cannot see clearly. But the moment you step back and observe, activate a deeper level of consciousness. In the silence, your inner world becomes more visible. You see your desires, your fears, your old wounds, and even your hidden gifts. You begin to realize that your inner landscape has been influencing your outer life all along. When you are anxious inside, perceive danger outside. When you are peaceful within, even chaos cannot shake your foundation. This realization is not intellectual, it is experiential, and it only comes when the mind becomes still and the breath becomes your guide. Every breath becomes a teacher. Inhale, and you draw life in. Exhale, you release what no longer serves you. This rhythm, when followed with awareness, becomes a sacred practice, not a ritual of escape, but of presence and clarity. Through the breath you anchor yourself in the now, and it is only in the now that the invisible becomes visible. Inner vision is not about seeing things others cannot. It is about seeing what is already there, but ignored or unseen, because the mind is too noisy to notice. The breath also becomes a mirror. It reflects the state of your mind. If your breath is shallow and erratic, your thoughts will be the same. If your breath is deep and steady, your awareness expands. The secret is not to control the breath, but to be with it, to watch it, to follow it, as if it were a thread leading you home. Each breath brings you closer to the still point within, and it is in that stillness that the eye of perception opens, not your physical eye, but the inner eye, the one that sees truth without distortion. Through consistent breath, awareness, and cultivated stillness, you begin to notice a shift in perception. Colors seem more vivid, sounds become clearer, people's emotions become more transparent. You begin to sense energy and intention behind words, begin to feel life more deeply, not because the world has changed, but because you have tuned into a different frequency, a frequency that was always there, but now you are aware of it. This is not a temporary state, this is the beginning of a transformation, but it requires consistency. You must return to the breath, again and again, even when the mind resists. Especially when the mind resists, Because that is when the breakthrough is near, the resistance is the threshold that guards the treasure, and only those who are willing to stay present through it will reach the other side. The breath is always available, and yet it holds the key to a kind of vision that no amount of external searching can give you. It does not matter your background, your beliefs, or your experience. All that matters is your willingness to become still, to observe and to breathe with intention. This is the path to envision, and once you taste the clarity it brings, you will wonder how you ever lived without it, because true seeing begins, not when the eyes are open, but when the breath and mind become one, in stillness. The third eye is not a myth, but a perceptual center of awareness and truth. Many people hear words, third eye, and immediately dismiss it as fantasy or superstition, because the modern world has trained us to value only what can be seen, touched, measured, or proven. But those who have walked the ancient paths, those who have sat in silence, those who have trained their awareness and mastered the breath, know that there is more to this life than what meets the physical eye. The third eye is not a physical structure, it is an energetic and spiritual gateway. It is the seat of intuition, clarity, insight, and perception. It is not about seeing ghosts or predicting the future. It is about perceiving reality in its raw and unfiltered form, beyond illusion, beyond surface, beyond the noise of the ordinary world. Every human being is born with the potential to access this center of awareness. It is not reserved for saints or sages. It is within all of us, waiting to be awakened, but it remains dormant for most people, not because it is broken, but because it is blocked by doubt, by fear, by distractions, by overstimulation, by attachment to physical reality. The third eye is like a window, but if the glass is covered with dust, you cannot see through it, and that dust is the noise of your mind, confusion of your emotions, and the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what is real. Activating the third eye is not about trying to create new visions. It is about removing what prevents you from seeing clearly. It is about purification of attention, alignment of thought, and cultivation of silence. When you stop chasing after external images and begin to turn your focus inward, you begin to feel a shift. At first, it is subtle. Perhaps you start to sense a deeper stillness between your thoughts, or you notice that you are becoming more aware of your surroundings. With effort, you begin to feel more present, more alert, more connected. This is the beginning of the awakening of the third eye. It is located in the center of the forehead, slightly above the space between the eyebrows, and while it cannot be touched, like your eyes or ears, it can be activated. Meditation, vision, breath work, and focused attention. When you sit with your spine straight, your body still, and your breath calm, and you place your awareness gently on this center, without strain or expectation, you begin to open the doorway, not by force, but by presence. The more you return this practice, the clearer your inner vision becomes. Through this inner eye, you begin to see patterns in your life that were invisible before you. Notice how your thoughts create your emotions, how your emotions shape your actions, and how your actions determine your destiny. You begin to see the masks that people wear, not to judge them, but to understand their pain, their fear, and their longing. You begin to perceive energy, not just as a concept, but as a living reality. The vibration of a room, the heaviness of certain words, the lightness of truth, all of these become visible through your awareness. The third eye also gives you access to your own intuition, that quiet voice that knows, without needing to explain, that sense that warns you, or guides you, even when logic disagrees, and time after time, you realize it was right. This intuition is not magic, it is the result of clarity of inner space, and the removal of mental noise. When your mind is busy with doubt, fear, distraction, and desire, your intuition is drowned out. But when your inner world becomes still, the voice of knowing returns, and it guides you with quiet strength. This is why the third eye is so important, and why it has revered in ancient traditions across the world. In India, it is called Ajna Chakra, the center of command and insight in Taoism. It is linked to the inner vision of the spirit in Buddhism. It represents the wisdom of prajna, the clear seeing of reality as it is not as we wish it to be. And in traditions, it is activated, not through belief, but through practice. and discipline. It is important to understand that awakening the third eye does not make you special. It does not mean you are superior or enlightened. It means you have taken a step closer to truth, a step away from illusion towards awareness. It means you have chosen to see with the eyes of spirit, not just the eyes of flesh. And once this eye begins to open, your life changes, not because the world changes, but because your way of seeing does. You no longer chase what is false. You no longer fear what is temporary. You begin to live with clarity, with intuition, with inner guidance. And that is the real power of the third eye, not to impress others, but to understand yourself and this life with greater depth, with greater honesty, and with a heart that sees through the darkness into the light, activating inner vision, daily discipline, observation, and humility. It is not something that happens overnight, and it is not something that can be forced. It is a process of unfolding, a slow, steady awakening that begins with your intention and deepens with your practice. Most people want quick results. They want instant transformation, but the truth is that anything lasting, anything real, anything that opens the door to true perception must be earned over time with consistent effort and quiet determination. You do not need to be perfect, but you do need to be present and committed. Discipline does not mean punish yourself or following rigid rules. It means creating a structure for your growth. It means making space in your life every day to sit in stillness, to breathe with awareness, and to observe without judgment. It means doing the work even when you do not feel like it, especially when you do not feel it, because that is when the ego begins to dissolve and the real you begins to emerge. It is in those moments of resistance that the greatest transformation can occur. When you stay, when you breathe, when you observe without reacting, you are training your inner vision to remain clear and centered, no matter what storms may come. Observation is the next key. It is not enough to be still. You must also learn to see, to watch your thoughts as they rise and fall, to notice your emotions without being swept away, to become aware of the sensations in your body, the energy in your breath, and the quality of your awareness itself. This kind of observation is not passive. It is a living presence, a conscious engagement with every moment. It means being awake, not just in meditation, but throughout the day, noticing when you are distracted, when you are reactive, when you are speaking from ego rather than truth. And each time you notice, you come back, you return to presence, you return to clarity. This is how inner vision is cultivated, not in grand moments, but in the simple act of returning again and again to the now, to your breath, to your awareness. The more you do this, the stronger your inner vision becomes, and over time, it starts to change the way you experience everything. You begin to see through appearances, through noise, through illusion. You begin to sense the deeper meaning behind your experiences, the lesson in every challenge, the energy behind every interaction. You are no longer fooled surface. You are no longer controlled by fear or desire, because you have touched something deeper, something real. But none of this is possible without humility. The third key, humility, is the ground in which all true wisdom grows. It means recognizing that you do not know everything, that your mind, conditioning, your past experiences are not the ultimate authority. It means being open to learning, open to unlearning, open to seeing things in a new way, even if it challenges your beliefs. Humility is what allows you to listen deeply to others and to yourself. It is what keeps your heart soft and your mind clear. It is what allows you to admit when you are wrong and to change course when necessary, without shame or resistance. Humility also protects you from the traps of spiritual ego. When your inner vision begins to open, when you start to see more clearly, it is easy to fall into the illusion of superiority, to believe that you are more advanced or more awakened than others. But this is a false vision. The deeper your perception becomes, the more clearly you see the shared humanity, the shared struggles, the shared light in every being. You no longer feel the need to compare or compete. You understand that true vision connects rather than divides. When you live with discipline, observation, and humility, your life becomes a living meditation. Each breath becomes a doorway, each challenge becomes a teacher, each person becomes a mirror, and each moment becomes an opportunity to deepen your seeing. And this is not a path
that ends. It is a path that continues to unfold, revealing more and more truth as you become more and more still, more and more open, more and more present. So take this path, not because it is easy, but because it is real, not because it gives you power, but because it gives you peace, not because others will praise you, but because you will come to know yourself in a way that is deep and honest and unshakable. This is the journey of inner vision, a path walked one breath, one step, one moment at a time, with patience, with sincerity, and with a heart that is willing to see beyond the visible, into the truth that was always there waiting to be known. So deep that your entire relationship with life is altered forever. When your inner vision is activated, you begin to see everything differently, not because the world outside has changed, but because the lens through which you perceive has become clear. What you once thought was solid now appears fluid. What you once feared now appears as a lesson, and what you once ignored now appears full of meaning and silent wisdom. You realize that you were living in a dream shaped by assumptions, by limited thinking, by fear, and by the constant need for validation. You wake up from this dream, not all at once, but in layers, and each time a layer is removed, what is revealed is a deeper truth, the kind of truth that does not require words, because it is felt in the heart, known in the bones, and seen with a clarity that cannot be explained. It is like standing on a mountain and realizing that the problems that once consumed you are only shadows on the wall of a cave. And now you are standing in sunlight. You begin to notice the subtle patterns that govern life, how everything is connected, how the things that seem random are not random at all, but part of a greater design, and your place at design becomes clearer, not as something separate or superior, but as something deeply intertwined. You see people differently, not as roles or labels, but as energies, as souls, each carrying their own story, their own pain, their own light, and suddenly, you no longer want to judge or compete. You to understand and support and listen, because you see that in them, you also see yourself. The need for constant noise begins to fade. You no longer feel the urge to escape yourself through distraction or entertainment, because the inner world has become more vivid, more peaceful, more alive. Anything you could find on a screen. Your relationship with silence changes. Silence is no longer empty. It is full. It is alive. It becomes your teacher, your companion, your sanctuary. You find that in the silence you are guided, not by thought, but by intuition, not by fear, but by a knowing that is ancient, wise, and unshakable. Your actions also begin to change, not because you are trying to be good, but because you are guided by clarity. Your choices come from a place of alignment, not confusion. You no longer chase what others chase, because you no longer measure your life by comparison. You are no longer interested in proving anything, because you are no longer unsure of who you are. This is the power of inner vision. It does not just let you see what is invisible, it helps you understand who you have always been, beneath the noise, beneath the masks, beneath the fear, even suffering. Different when seen through awakened vision. You no longer see it as punishment, but as purification, as a messenger pointing to something unhealed, something unacknowledged, something waiting to be released. You stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this teaching me? And the moment you ask the question with sincerity, the answer begins to arise, not from outside, but from within, and you begin to see the beauty in your scars, the strength in your struggles, and the wisdom in your wounds. Relationships deepen when you see with awakened eyes, because you see beyond words, beyond appearances. Feel the energy behind actions. You sense what is unsaid. You understand what others cannot express, and your compassion grows, not out of sympathy, but out of shared humanity. Your presence becomes healing, because it is clear, it is calm, it is real, and people feel it, without needing to explain it, because presence speaks louder than any words ever could. This awakened vision does not make you perfect, it makes you authentic. It does not free you from the challenges of life, but it frees you from the illusions that make those challenges unbearable. You still feel pain, but you are no longer afraid of it. You still face difficulties, but you are no longer lost in them because you see the path, even in darkness. You see the lesson, even in chaos. You see the truth, even when the world is full of lies. And once this way of seeing has been opened, it does not close. Again, you may be distracted, you may be tested, but you are never the same. You are never blind in the way you once were, because now, you know what it means to truly see, and that knowing becomes your compass, your anchor, your quiet strength, and your light that never fades, no matter how dark the world may appear on the surface. So now, question is not whether you have the power to awaken this vision, but whether you are ready to walk the path that leads to it. The journey is not for the curious, it is for the committed. It is not for those who seek entertainment, but for those who seek truth. Once you begin, there is no turning back, because what has been seen cannot be unseen. What has been felt cannot be forgotten. This is your invitation to return to yourself, to trust the silence, to breathe with intention, and to open the eye that sees beyond form, beyond fear, beyond illusion. The time is now. The choice is yours. The vision.
Waiting not in the world around you but in the world within you.